right back. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
If you are among the very young at heart.
And welcome back to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Zach Spencer, and today we're talking about naturopathic health and nutrition. We have our professionals from Integrative Naturopathic Medical Center in Vancouver. Dr. Katie Leah and Kirsten McEwen is a holistic nutritionist. Easy for me to say. So this time around, we're going to talk about hormones. Now, nobody likes to say your hormones are imbalanced, but it's often the case. And as we get older, your hormones change, right? Well, we all know we start out, and then we go through puberty, and it's hormones. And then as you go, and then so is it always evolving, your hormone levels?
I think for most people it is, actually. There seem to be very specific times in our lives where that hormonal shift seems to be more obvious and can create more problems. But it's a normal thing. I guess really, what's important is to figure out, is this normal for me? Is this healthy, or is this problematic?
And how would you know that? Because you've forgotten your old self, maybe.
Yeah, I think probably the most important things that we try to assess are, things like energy and sleep and mood. Certainly weight is affected by our hormones as we age. But then also things like, our bone density and, libido and sexual function. So outside of all of the really obvious things like menstrual symptoms for women, there's a ton of other functions in our body that are regulated by our hormones.
I'm not sure if this is positive or negative, but somebody who brought this sort of to the forefront over the last 10 or 15 years was Suzanne Summers. Like, she wrote books about it. She referenced a naturopathic doctor here in Vancouver, I believe. And she is that voodoo, or is she actually saying something that's constructive?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what she did was she tried to say, look, here, this is my experience, and she was very open about her experience, as she went through menopause, and she said, there's another way, and I think that was really positive for a lot of people. I think this is a very common experience for a lot of people that we see in our practice. They come in and they don't realize that you don't have to feel this way. There is something that we can do about this for you.
All right, so if your hormones are imbalanced, do you replace them with other things, or is it back to the whole person, eating, diet, exercise? How do you change your hormones, or is there sometimes a path set for you then you can't do anything about?
I think there's always options available. Of course, we always focus on diet and nutrition as the basis for all of our treatments. But there are other options available in terms of hormone replacement therapies, whether that's through your conventional doctor or using something like bioidentical hormones. And then there's lots of things like herbs and other botanicals that also can keep your hormonal system in balance.
What about with diet?
I approach all hormone imbalances to begin with in the same way, and we work to make sure blood sugar is balanced. If your blood sugar is not balanced, your other hormones aren't going to be balanced, and you're going to get nowhere. So that for me is absolutely foundational. And by blood sugar imbalance, I don't necessarily mean those people who have just been diagnosed with, insulin resistance or high blood sugar or type 2 diabetes. These are people who are kind of just on this subclinical blood sugar roller coaster throughout the day. So maybe not eating regularly throughout the day, eating those high glycemic foods, lots of sugar, stimulants, all those kinds of things can
don't
really
say coffee.
We just
Don't say coffee. I love coffee. All right, let's go there. What does coffee do for you and not do for you? Because we hear studies now that coffee, there's some benefits to coffee.
For me, I look at coffee on an individual basis. So if you need coffee to plug in, then for me, it's probably not serving you positively. If you don't need coffee first thing when you wake up, you're not like running to the kitchen to like push the button to start the coffee.
Well, sometimes you don't know. You wouldn't know if you really, really need it. It's just a habit. Like, I like taste. I like that starting the day with my cup of coffee. It's not that I need it to wake up. It's part of my morning.
Then for you, it might be just
the best part of waking up is coffee in my cup, right?
And for some people, I don't think coffee is a problem. I think it's just more if you're using it to plug in and you really need it, then it might be something you want to address.
Well, the one thing I heard about coffee is the North American habit to turn everything into dessert, right?
That too.
So you get the caramel macchiato. Like, I drink drip coffee or an Americano with a little bit of skim milk, and that's it. I think total calories is like 20 calories or something, right? But I see some people, they get the whip wrap, and it's like, and they put it on the counter, and it's like, it's basically coffee with a whole bunch of whipped cream and sugar on top.
Yeah.
It's
That is not
sugar.
going to do much for your glycemic index.
No, I
No.
mean, that will literally, push you through the roof, and then, half an hour later, you'll be crashing. So.
The other thing, coffee, Katie and I have Katie's a coffee lover, and I'm an ex-coffee addict. I haven't had coffee for 10 years. So we constantly are kind of like bickering about this subject. But coffee also stimulates our adrenal glands, which is the part of our body that helps us to manage stress. And imbalance in the adrenal glands can create imbalance in lots of other areas in our hormones, like the sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all those kinds of things. So for a lot of people with hormone imbalance, that's another reason why excessive coffee might not be a good idea.
And our adrenal glands.
So I want to hear, that's the I want to hear the pro for the coffee.
Katie?
Okay, so.
Because I loves me my coffee.
And I am an admitted coffee drinker. I mean, I think
What's your go-to drink?
I'm in an Americano.
And a drip coffee?
I like drip coffee.
Okay, good.
Yeah, little bit of
You
milk.
should meet for coffee one day.
What is the topic of the show again?
We want the personal prescription here.
I mean, and for me, it's the moderation piece. I like Kirsten said, there are some habitual things around it, but there are times where absolutely the only thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is
the smell of a coffee.
Walking to my coffee machine to turn it on. And so absolutely, I agree with Kirsten that those are times where I know there's probably something else going on. I'm maybe not eating as well, I'm not exercising as well, my stress level is too high, my body's not capable of managing it. And so I think the most important thing with coffee is really developing awareness around how you're using it, when you're using it, how much are you consuming, and then of course, what are you putting in it?
All right, well I just wanted to go there because I know so many people listening to this show, we love coffee.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so.
and it definitely is one of those, we call it a notorious hormone imbalancer. So I do think it's an important topic when we're talking about hormones.
Yeah, and so in terms of how it relates back to our hormones, because Kirsten was mentioning that it sort of affects our adrenal glands, and our adrenal glands really are what help us adapt to stress. As we age and as our natural hormone production starts to decline, we still have a need for hormones, and so we have a backup mechanism in place for that, and that's our adrenals. So really, we hand the baton to our adrenal glands to do that job.
all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and if our adrenal glands are already stressed out with managing the effect of food or emotional stress or not enough sleep, then they have very little resources left over to be able to keep up the hormone production as we need.
All right, let's get to probably the number one hormone time of life, and that is women going through menopause, and they are listening to BoomerLife, and they're maybe there or they're not there yet. What can you do to alleviate the symptoms of that?
So we see a lot of women and men who are going through a hormonal transition. So for women, it's perimenopause or menopause. For men, we call it andropause. And during that period of time, we want to be supporting, all parts of our hormonal system. So we do a lot of testing in our office just to get a great idea of where the baseline is. How much do you have in your body at any given time? And we have certainly options available for hormone replacement therapies. Probably the things that we rely on the most are bioidentical hormones. So those are plant-derived hormones. They work in our body very similarly to how our natural hormones would work. But then we oftentimes will put together a plan in terms of dietary modification, and we do use a lot of herbs and other nutritional supplements to support that.
Because you hear all the stories about, hot flashes, sleep, crankiness, all of those sorts of things. Can you say you're at an 8 with all of that? Can you bring that down to a 2?
Absolutely, yeah. And we've seen lots of cases where I have women that come in who they're not sleeping through the night. They're waking up drenched in sweat. Their energy is really low through the day. They're gaining weight. Their mood is affected. Their family is looking at them going, "What is going on with you? You're not yourself." And they come in and we check them and we find out maybe they're low in a couple of things, estrogen, progesterone. And then when we start to supplement those, I've had lots of women that will come back and say, "I'm sleeping through the night. I love my family again." And, I'm seeing my body shift. I'm just generally feeling better overall.
Even sometimes in just a few weeks.
Oh, it can happen within a period of, 2 to 4 weeks for a lot of women.
And are there foods that help with this stuff?
Yeah, so the blood sugar thing, like I mentioned before, is absolutely sort of foundational. And then I actually ask people to eat more fat because, especially saturated fat, which is, people always look at me with big wide eyes.
Bacon? Are you crazy?
Maybe not bacon, like maybe coconut oil.
Oh, you're going that route. Oh, you took the fun out of it.
See, I told you I'm not always popular at first.
Bacon? No, coconut oil. Oh.
So yeah, saturated fat actually helps our body to produce sex hormones and cortisol, our hormone for stress management.
Okay, with that, just want to jump in quickly.
Yeah.
We've had this whole shift in our society over the last 20, 25 years is low fat. Or people taking fat out of their diet, or taking dairy out. I mean, I know a lot of young women don't drink any or have any dairy. It's all low fat. It's lean chicken. It's salad. It's all that kind of stuff. They're not really getting any fat on their body, and that's not good either, right? They think because they want to stay thin and they want to stay, want to look their best, but they're not eating fat. What do you say about that?
Well, especially with coconut oil, the type of fat found in coconut oil, the body almost never stores it as fat. It uses it for energy, almost like it would carbohydrates. So really, the new research coming out shows us that an increased dietary intake of fat actually doesn't make us more fat. Typically, it's carbohydrates.
Yeah.
It's the good old bread.
It's the good old bread.
Yeah.
So when we eat too many carbohydrates and we don't burn that off through the activity of the day, overnight our body actually turns those carbohydrates and stores it as fat in our body.
So what are the worst carbohydrates? Is it refined wheat products? Is it potatoes and rice and all? What are the top three culprits for carbohydrates?
Sugar for sure.
Sugar.
Anything made from flour, so like bread, pasta. A lot of crackers, that type of thing.
Doughs.
Yeah, and then probably
Cookies.
white rice. Yeah,
And white
and
rice.
baked goods, things like that.
I have a friend of mine who was, doctor said, you've got to reduce your carbs, but he's Chinese and he eats a lot of rice, and it's like, oh, well, now what?
Yeah,
So
and that can be very difficult from a cultural standpoint for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, my wife is Italian, and she has a gluten intolerance, so she grew up eating this stuff every meal, pretty much. Right now, can't touch it.
Yeah, and it's not about never having those things ever. It's just about reducing them enough so that your blood sugar levels balance out and you're able to see some results in terms of what your health goals are. We're definitely not, it's totally black and white about things, and we believe in moderation and indulgence from time to time.
Do you guys do the 80-20 rule?
80-20.
Totally.
80-20.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do the Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
I'm really strict on the Monday to Friday. Let things, eat as well as you can on the weekend. But if you have a few potato chips on Friday or Saturday night, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
right?
and as long as you build that into, a good exercise routine, you're getting good quality sleep. I mean, there's a lot of things that the moderation piece works very well.
All right, we're going to come back and switch it over to cognitive health and memory when we come back on Boomer Life right here on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.